Hello, this is Monica Sawyer. Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Women, where we focus on all aspects of real estate investing, including strategies, mindset, emotional mastery, money smarts, and so much more to ensure your success. If you'd like to learn my personal favorite investing strategy, just go to blissfulinvestor.com. You can also listen to this episode on the Real Estate Investing for Women podcast on iTunes. Now, let's welcome our guest. Today, I am so excited to welcome to the show our guest, Rhonda Britten. Rhonda is an Emmy Award-winner, repeat Oprah guest, and master coach that has changed lives in over 600 episodes of reality television, authored 4 bestsellers, including her seminal work, Fearless Living, translated into 18 languages, and founded the Fearless Living Institute, home of Fearless Living Life Coach Certification Program, considered the Ivy League of life coach training. Yay! She was the first life coach on television in the world and appeared for 3 seasons as the head life coach in the hit daytime NBC show Starting Over. Named its most valuable player by the New York Times and heralded as America's favorite life coach, she brings the neuroscience of fear down to earth, giving you a path out of not being good enough using the wheels technology she developed that saved her own life. She's been read, heard, and watched by millions, coached tens of thousands of clients, trained hundreds of coaches, and wants to share all that she knows with you too. Yay! Welcome to the show, Rhonda. How are you?
I am so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be here because it is a day that we all, every day is a good day to get fearless. And specifically today is a good day to get fearless because of your topic. I love what you do.
Yay, thank you, thank you. I love what I do too. And I love what you do. So we're going to be a match made in heaven today. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So Rhonda, tell us a little bit about you. I'd love to hear your story.
Oh my gosh. So I think what you're asking about is what got me here, right? Like,
yes, absolutely.
What made me Rhonda Britten, right? Why me? Why now? Why do I get to even tell anybody about fear and how to get fearless, right? What gives me the right? Well, let me just say right now, I didn't read it from a book, even though I read a lot of books, and I didn't learn it at a workshop, even though I've taken a lot of workshops. The work of Fearless Living is really from my own life experience, from my own soul, just like you said earlier about it saved my own life, and it really did. And, the day that I'm referring to is, I'm pretty much going to share the worst day of my life. It was Father's Day. I was 14 years old. And I grew up in a little tiny town in Upper Michigan, 365 inches of snow a year, 2 restaurants, we're talking little. And my parents had recently separated. My father was coming to take us out to brunch. And I don't know about you, but we didn't grow up going out to dinner, right? There's 3 kids, 2 adults, that's 5 people. So that's a lot of people. So my dad coming to take us to brunch is a big butt deal, right? Big ass deal. So I'm so excited because we never go out to eat, right? Never. And my mother made me a brand new dress. That's how fancy it was. And my mom's in her bedroom, putting on her blue eyeshadow, fluff on her beehive. And my dad walks in, come on, come on. My sisters are fighting it out in our one bathroom. Me and my mom and dad start walking out. My sister's still fighting out in our one bathroom. And as me and my mom and dad, with my sister still in the bathroom, we start walking out to the car, and it starts raining. My dad looks at me and says, well, I got to get my coat from the car. And so he takes the key and puts it in the trunk and opens it up. And out of the corner of my eye, I see that he is not grabbing a coat. He is grabbing a gun, and he starts screaming, yelling, you made me do this, you made me do this. And he fires. And he shoots my mother. And I start screaming, Dad, what are you doing, Dad? What are you doing? Stop, what are you doing, Dad? And he cocks the gun and he looks at me, and I look at him, and he blinks and I blink. And I absolutely 100% believe I'm next. 100% believe I'm going to be dead in 5 seconds. And my mother, with already a bullet inside of her, looks up, sees that gun in my face, and screams, no, don't. Literally with her last breath. And my father, realizing my mother's still alive, takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And that second bullet enters my mother's abdomen and goes out the back of her into the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I heard was, eh. And then the next second, my father cocks the gun again, drops to his knees, and puts the gun to his head and fires. So when I'm 14 years old, I am the sole witness to my father murdering my mother and committing suicide in front of me. Now, I don't know how you would have responded, but this is how I responded. I blamed myself because I was the only one physically outside that could have stopped it. I didn't grab the gun. I didn't kick my father in the shin, right? I didn't jump in front of my mother even. I just literally froze there saying, stop, Dad, stop. And so that day, you know, looking back on it, I know basically that day I split into two. The girl who, you know, had to be okay because I grew up in Upper Michigan, Upper Minnesota, you know, suck it up, everything's fine. No, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. So I lived most of my life telling everybody I was fine. Where the internal part of me, the part that split off, was anything but fine, anything but fine. I was so not fine. And so for the next 20 years, I basically had the battle within, right? The outside me, straight A student, I'm fine, I got a scholarship to college, you know, I'm gonna be all right. And then the internal me that started drinking, started doing things in order to distract myself, right? So I started drinking, became an alcoholic, got 3 DUIs, had 3 suicide attempts. And it was that third suicide attempt that I realized I'm not very good at killing myself. And I got to figure out another way. Now, I want to preface this by saying one thing. During those 20 years of me drinking, committing suicide, getting DUIs, remember, I split into two. So there was that other part of me that was perfectly wonderful, right? Like if you would have met me, I would have been like, no, I'm fine, right? So I read, and I did everything to help myself. I went to workshops, I read books, you name it, I've done it. I have done everything. During those 20 years, I tried to do everything to help myself. And really, it wasn't until that third suicide attempt that I realized all the things that I had tried were good information. It was good knowledge to have, but it fundamentally did not change how I felt about myself, right? Mm-hmm. It was good things to know, but I didn't, you know, in the middle of the night, I still thought there was something seriously wrong with me. And so when I got home from the psychiatric ward in my third suicide attempt, because that's, by the way, where they put you when you try to kill yourself 3 times, they take you for evaluation. And I was deemed not crazy, went home and said to myself, if I'm going to live, if I am not going to die, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep living like this. Right. I can't keep doing this. And I have got to figure it out. And so really out of desperation, and I mean real desperation, literal desperation, I started making up exercises for myself. I thought to myself, I have to begin again. I got to go back to kindergarten. And so I started making up exercises for myself. And shockingly to me, they started working. And, you know, I didn't think it was going to be for anybody but me. You know, in fact, I was embarrassed that I had to create exercises because it seemed workshops and books and therapy helped everybody else. But they didn't help. It was, again, good knowledge, but I didn't think differently of myself. So, you know, I started making up exercises and again, didn't think it was for anybody but me. And then a couple at church like chased me out one day and was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not doing anything. They're like, well, you're doing something. And I'm like, what? No. And, no, I'm not. Because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I was so screwed up that workshops, books, and therapy didn't help me. You know, they didn't purge me, right, of my, you know, my negative thoughts. And so I said, well, and they like just kept badgering me. And I'm like, okay, I'm making up exercises. And they're like, give me one. And I'm like, what? Okay. So I gave them one. The next week they came back and said, it's working. Can I have another one? And I'm like, what? And that was the first moment I actually was like, oh, maybe this isn't just for me. You know, maybe I didn't just go through 20 years of hell for me, right? Maybe this has another purpose and another meaning. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I didn't start teaching and coaching for years after that. There was no such thing as coaching when this happened. And then I, you know, then I slowly but surely started doing the steps necessary in order to teach and coach. And, you know, coaching, I was introduced to a mentor, and shockingly, Fearless Living not only has it changed my life significantly, but it has changed my clients' lives and my students' lives. And it's miraculous. And I'm very, very, very grateful that I had the opportunity to experience the life I've lived so far. And again, would I rather have people ask me all the time, would you rather have your parents alive or be Rhonda Britten? I go, of course I'd rather have my parents alive. And I am very grateful that I was willing, out of desperation, to do the work necessary in order to change my life.
It's such an amazing story, Rhonda. And it is true that there are so many people that will not do the work, that will choose,
Yep.
instead of being fearless or instead of being blissful, to choose to wallow in the victimhood of, look at what happened to me.
Yeah.
And and I will say more people will do that than less, right? But there's a kind of a comfort zone about being the person that lived that life, identifying yourself as that person, rather than trying to recreate who you are, right?
Well, it's kind of like I always say, when I give a keynote or teach a class and, we're talking about excuses, I say, come on now, I have the ultimate excuse. If I was an alcoholic on the side of the road, or, messed up somewhere, or, just not living my life as me right now, not living my true nature, nobody would say, oh, poor Rhonda. Like everybody would be like, well, you know what happened to Rhonda? And they would literally just give up on me because I have a really good excuse to be messed up.
Right.
And I think, this is why I do what I do, exactly what you're saying right now. I think it takes tremendous courage for some people to get out of bed in the morning. I know for many years it did me as well. And it takes tremendous courage to get out of the victim story. And I do believe that the only reason I got out of the victim story is because I tried to, because I got so desperate. I had tried so hard to change my life as well as keep my victim story, right? Like I'm going to change my life and keep my victim story, right? But that doesn't work. You actually have to let go of the victim story. You have to transform the victim story. You have to make it a victor story, right? But you have to actually become the victor. But that takes great courage. And so, yes, there are a lot of people that stay in victim mode, but I actually don't blame them for that because we're just not taught how, we don't understand how fear works, because this is, again, why I do the work I do. I went to therapy, did workshops, but nothing explained what was really, they told me a lot of stuff, but it didn't fundamentally change my view of myself. So the work that I do is I help people that feel, God, I've done everything. Why can't I get this? Or I've done so many great things, but why do I still have this? It's that why do I still, or why can't I get, that, it really is a new awareness, a new transformational, a new view of how fear really works. Because once you understand fear in the way that I do, all that guilt and shame just falls off, and that victim can be put to bed.
So yes, I would never blame someone for staying in sort of that victim place. A lot of people are in that place and don't even really realize it because that's not what it looks like, right? Victimhood comes in so many different shapes and forms and words and thoughts and all of that stuff, right? So I don't blame anybody. And a lot of it is really propagated by television, advertising, the news, all of those things, right? Which is why I don't watch television. I'm really careful about what's around me, right? But we can't completely seal ourselves off from the world either. Right. And we wouldn't want to. We want to live fully, right?
That's right.
And so building the strength to move yourself out of that it's a really hard thing. I totally get that. So what's really interesting here is that your story is not the same as mine, but I too have dealt with a lot of trauma. And on the other side of that, also became a coach. And for me, I decided that my path was to focus on bliss. You have chosen the path to focus on fear.
That's right.
And they're the same, but different, like with different clothes, right? So not fear, but fearless, the lack of fear, right? Yes. So could you talk to me a little bit about why you made the choice to go that route?
Because I think that's really at the heart of what is stopping all of us. I believe that when you understand how fear works, life changes for you and you can be blissful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure that you've experienced people that want bliss, right? They want blissful, they want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they keep getting tripped up, right? They keep
Mm-hmm.
getting tripped up. And so, that trip is just a sign that fear is in control. And also for me, I think I'm really committed. Well, let's put it this way. For all of my life, when I was going through, alcoholism, suicides, etc., I never would have said I'm afraid. So that's the irony of this all. If you would have asked me if I'm afraid, I would be like, no, because I also think that people don't even know they have fear, just like they don't even know they're being a victim, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know that. They just know that their life is stuck. They just know like their life has stopped. They just know that they're not doing what they want. They just know that they're overwhelmed. They just know that they're procrastinating. They just know they're perfectionism. They just know they're anxious, right? That's what they know.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't know is all of that stems from fear. You can't be anxious without a fear. You can't be overwhelmed without a fear. You can't procrastinate without a fear. You can't be perfectionist without a fear. So when I really understood how fear worked, and it was, God-given insight, it definitely didn't come from me. My life literally, it's almost like, you click into place, right? Everything was like, tick, 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 click, 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 click. And I saw myself completely different. I saw the world differently because neuroscience says you can change your thoughts, you can change your feelings. That's nice. It's a good exercise. Awesome. Change your values, change your beliefs. Again, good exercise, nice and awesome. But if you do not change the fundamental filter and system in which you operate out of, you actually will not create lasting change. So I help people move from that fear-based filter, which they don't even know they have, to one of freedom, i.e. bliss, right?
Yeah.
So that they can shift because there's no getting rid of fear. It's part of our neurobiology. So if you don't really understand how fear works, fear will always win. It'll always trip you up. So for me, fear is the fundamental building block of a blissful and fearless life. Without it, you're going to keep getting stopped by it.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I love that. I got tingles, Rhonda. I have a thought around fear because this is a question that I get a lot because I talk a lot about fear in my work too, right? That's obvious. You're right. It is foundational, right? Some people will say to me, well, fear is here to help us to survive. It's a natural good thing. Like if I see a hot fire, fear is what makes me not put my hand in the fire. If I see cars whizzing by, fear is what makes me not jump in front of a car running across the street, right? So let's talk about that, like the fear that's actually healthy and real and serves us, and then the fear that you're talking about.
Well, you're talking about two different fears. You're talking about fears, instinctuals to stay physically alive.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're talking about emotional fears. And, I coined the term emotional fears because there was no way to describe the fears that I was talking about every day. Mm-hmm. So when people talk about the whizzing traffic and, the hot stove, that is instinctual physical survival. That is a physical fear. What I'm talking about, and I'm sure what you talk about, is emotional fears. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of inadequate, fear of incompetent, fear of worthless, right? Mm-hmm. Fear of being a loser, fear of being stupid, fear of being selfish, right? All those fears are what I've coined emotional fears. And so people get caught in like, well, isn't fear good? Well, yeah, fear is good. Absolutely 100%. But if you do not know how to identify when anger is being used in fear versus freedom, because anger in and of itself is neutral, right? All feelings and all beliefs can be used in service to fear or freedom. All values can be used in service to fear or freedom. So like a value of integrity, everybody wants that. Everybody wants to be called integrity. I have integrity, right? Like it's like one of the biggest, you have so much integrity, right? You're so authentic, right? It's awesome, right? Those things like, right? Being labeled that, it's like, oh, thank you for that. But a lot of people use integrity, the value of integrity, through the lens of fear, right? So if you have integrity and you're in freedom, you're flexible, even though you have integrity, right? You can renegotiate, right? You can put your needs forward. But people that use integrity out of fear, which I think is many people, is they're very rigid. They say things like, I said I was going to do it and I'm going to do it no matter what, right? And you're like, but I said I'm going to do it, so I'm going to do it. I'm like, oh, okay. So integrity is superseded, like fear has, danced with integrity. And now they're using integrity as a positive, but in reality, it's fear driven. So what I always say is your values and your, there is no such thing as negative feelings. Like people go like, oh, or somebody said to me, one of my clients the other day said to me, oh, my husband, and he came home and he's so negative. And I'm like, okay, what did he say? He was telling me about some guy at work having a heart attack. And I told him to quit being so negative. I go, that's not negative. That's information. That's not negative. So people have confused this whole conversation of what's negative and positive. They actually, the frame needs to change to be into the change fear. The frame needs to change to fear to freedom. And, and here we have this whole like negative and positive. It's so limiting and it's so false. It actually keeps us trapped.
Right. Talk to me about this concept that you address quite a lot about this whole I'm not good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I am not good enough, as we know from a spiritual perspective, that's just an illusion. And we know that logically, we can understand that. Yet it feels real when we're feeling it, right? It feels real. Like when I feel I'm not good enough, I actually feel it. So one of the things that I work with my clients on is separating themselves from the feeling, and all of the work out there that's like, feel it. It's like, oh, no, not like, no, no, because yes, feelings, I could go on and on. There are people like, you have to go with the feeling and the feeling tone. And it's true. You do have to go with the feeling tone. But if you do not have awareness of where that feeling tone is coming from, you are going to be courting a feeling tone that is going to get you in places that is not good for you. And that is actually fear-based, even though it looks like it's not, right?
Feeling tone. What's that term mean?
So for instance, there's a lot of teachers out there that are like, just go with the positive feeling tone, like get into the feeling, like law of attraction work, right? It's like, oh, just get into the feeling, be the feeling, feel the car in your hands. And again, all that's awesome. You're right. No problem with that. But if you're driven to law of attraction and you want to get the car because the car is a status symbol, it'll make you feel better, and you think you're worthy of the car, you're actually being attracted to the car out of fear.
Yes.
Right. So it's like people don't know that though, right? And they're courting a feeling that they think is positive, but it's actually fear-based. So when I talk about people not feeling good enough, one of the things that I really work with people on is separating themselves and having the awareness of how fear shows up in their life versus how freedom shows up in their life. So, I give people a little quiz and I ask them to, rate themselves because again, as I said earlier, most people don't even know they're afraid. So I am not good enough is an illusion. It's the lie of fear, right? And by the way, fear is really, really smart. It is as smart as we are, as educated as we are, as spiritual as we are, as knowledgeable as we are. So if you have evidence, because excuses need evidence to make them excuses. So fear takes that excuse, takes that evidence and makes it real. And you actually believe that you're not good enough. Because you have evidence to point to, right? We have evidence to point to. And if you have evidence to point to, you actually believe the evidence because it's right there. It's right there. You've had 3 people say something, or you failed 3 times, or you had these 2 things happen and it's clearly true, right? And it feels true, right? And so what I want to do is help my clients separate from the feeling versus what freedom is, right? I want to have them separate those feelings and those thoughts and behaviors and choose instead freedom, which is going to feel uncomfortable, which is going to not be something they want to do, which they want to do intellectually, but they don't want to go through it, right? Right? As you know, right? The eye of the needle, right? It's like, oh, gotta go through the eye of the needle. Sorry, gotta go. And I always say, you know what, my job, and I'm sure your job is too, is I hold your hand while you're going through it. Like you're not alone, right? And it's not as scary as you think when you have support and the tools that will help you get there, right? You need some guidance. I'm basically my clients and my students are apprentice. I'm apprenticing them, right? They're in apprenticeship. I'm going to teach them how to be fearless. And as I'm sure you do as well. So I'm not good enough is an illusion. And the minute you believe that, fear wins.
I just want to sit in everything you say for minutes and just take it in. So beautiful. So ladies, re-listen to this. Let's talk a little bit about this whole thing. Like you were saying, you have one of your clients is like, my husband's so negative, right?
It's not negative.
Right.
The news is not negative, by the way. It's just information.
It's just information. However, we do feel like, and this has happened to me too. There are people that I love in my life that every single time I talk to them, they've got something to say that just feels it feels bad to me. You know, like they have some political spouting that they feel like they need to do, or they've got some complaint about that person or a complaint about that person. And like, that's all they do, right? I would say those people are complainers, and I feel like they're negative, and I want to spend as little time as possible as I can with them. I try to have as much compassion as possible, but you know, they feel negative. So what do you, how do you deal with those kinds of people?
I don't see them. Yeah. And I get it. That's what
Yeah.
people call them, as negative. And I don't see them as negative. I actually see that they're hanging on for dear life, trying to find connection through their fears.
Right. Okay.
So are they complaining? Maybe. Sure. They might be complaining. But, you know, people complain for connection. And people complain because if you just listen to complainers, people that complain, they're literally advertising their fears. They're telling you what they're afraid of. And so if you actually talk about the fears rather than the complaint, the conversation has an opportunity to change.
Right.
So do you have to stay in a relationship with people that aren't your cup of tea? No, absolutely not. But I do want my clients to have the skill to go to a family event, right? And their uncle's there, right? And doesn't believe what they believe, or is, grumpy and old and complaining all the time. And I want them to be able to look at that uncle and love them to pieces and be able to be in somebody's presence and recognize that the person itself is not flawed. The person who's complaining that quote unquote is negative, which again, not negative, they're just advertising their fears. They're literally just screaming for you to see them and to give them empathy, compassion, and innocence. So, you know, that's what they really are crying for. And the more that you can see their innocence, and the more that you can really listen to anything and anybody and be completely sending love and innocence and connection, then you really do know who to hang out with and who not to hang out with, right? So I'm not saying hang out with all those people that, you know, are complainers. But I also believe that complainers, not everybody, obviously, but complainers definitely are doing it to be heard. And can you hear what they're saying underneath the words? Not label them negative, because that just, anytime you call somebody negative, it just writes them off. You just write it, you're writing them off. And and again, I know that's not what you do, because you give them compassion, but a lot of people out there call people negative and they just write that person off. And I'll preface this again by saying, I am not saying you have to be in a relationship with abusers or complainers or, you know, people.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Definitely. I do not want you to be in a relationship with abusers and betrayers and people that reactivate your trauma every day. No, I do not want that for you. But I also want you to have the skill of knowing what's happening rather than you just running, right? So I totally don't want my clients to hang out with their trauma abusers, right? The perpetrators. I definitely don't want that. But I also want them to be awake to what's actually going on underneath the surface, like what's really happening, so that they don't get caught in it themselves and don't get caught into keeping themselves afraid, you know?
Well, it's very empowering, right? To know that you can walk into any room.
Yes.
And
totally.
handle almost any conversation.
That's right.
And even if you don't want to engage in that conversation, you can still have compassion, right? So it's a very empowering, uplifting filter, as you might call it, right? To see people asking for help rather than trying to offend you. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's also being able to, and I love that you brought this up, because having fearless conversations is one of the superpowers I have, and one of the things I teach my students. Because not only do I want you to be able to go to a room and have a conversation with anybody, but I also want you to be able to say no thank you as well, right?
Right.
Able to be like, yeah, that's not happening, right? So your no is just as powerful as your yes. And one of the things that I say all the time is, if you can't say no, your yes is meaningless. So if you don't have permission to say no or yes for any question asked, for any invitation asked, if you can't say no and yes, then you are being driven by fear. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, your high school reunion where like, oh my God, I'm going to go, totally going to go. Yes, I want to go. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, you know, somebody asks you to do something and you're like, oh, I better, that guilt and shame, like, oh, I better do
I
it.
should. Yeah.
If you're doing something out of should, that you haven't actually put through the filter of what if I say no and what if I say yes, and made a choice to say yes, then you are actually being a victim of circumstances. You're actually being driven by fear. And we all do that all day long, right? The should of us. So one of the exercises I give to my clients is actually keeping track of their shoulds every day. And it's shocking to them. Shocking. Because they had no idea how everyday decisions were increasing their fear and increasing their powerlessness.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And you know what really came up for me around that is how much we should on other people too.
Oh, yes,
right?
absolutely.
Like with us, we don't feel like we have a choice or yes or no. And so then we expect others to be okay with not having a choice of yes or no, right? And so the more that you allow your own freedom, your own choice, your own power, you can then open yourself up to be that person for the people around you. And then everybody expands. Love can be so much more intense and so much more beautiful. Learning, expansion, business, all of those things.
I love that. I'm so grateful that you said that, because that is absolutely truth. That is truth with a capital T.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk forever. I feel like we're soul sisters, Rhonda.
Time.
But we need to move on. So we do have extra. So Rhonda and I are going to be sharing more in extra. She has an interesting thing that she wants to share with you that's called the control or no control process. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, let's just say that I had an actor come to me once as a client who said to me, acting is just luck, right? It's a little luck. And I can't seem to get any lucky breaks, because especially acting, we all heard that, oh, lucky break, right? And so I created, because all the exercises that I create are either myself generated because I need it, and or client generated, right? So a client says something to me and I go ding, 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 because one of my superpowers is creating unique, individualized, personalized exercises to help people truly transform in just a matter of really quick minutes. So in that moment, he's sitting in front of me and I'm like, oh, I'm going to take this, I'm going to make up this exercise, right? All in no control. And what it does, when you go through the exercise and when you do the follow through, you will no longer have that feeling of powerlessness or that should feeling, right? You're actually going to take your power back. You can finally get through uncertainty. You can get through the unknown. You can get through like what ifs, right? So all of those things that stop us from making decisions or makes us feel like, well, life isn't fair, right? I know that I'm a big fair person. Life's got to be fair, right? So, but life isn't fair. And so that the control, no control exercise is also going to take away that fair. They got something that I didn't. I need lucky break. They got things that I didn't. If I was raised like them, then my life wouldn't be like this. All of that conversation of powerlessness and frustration and insecurity, you're going to see it in a very different lens. And I'm going to give you some things to do so you can actually move from that place whenever you feel it into a different arena.
Yay! Oh my God, that's going to be amazing. I can't wait. So ladies, that's coming up in extra. And so awesome. So stay tuned for that. Now, Rhonda, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh gosh, go to fearlessliving.org. And I do have a free gift, if I may.
Yes, of course. Please share.
The exercise is called Stretch, Risk, or Die. That's right, Stretch, Risk, or Die. And Stretch, Risk, or Die is going to take your to-do list, that procrastination, that perfectionism. Why don't I get this done? You get your 10 things on your task list and you do 1, 2, 3, skip 3 and 4, do 5, 6, 7, skip 8. Well, those 3, 4, 8, and you put to the next day and you keep on skipping them, right? I'm actually going to show you what's behind that skipping and what to do instead. So I'm actually going to start you on the fearless journey of owning your power, taking your power back, so that you can actually take stretch, risk, and dies in your life, because that's how you're going to get comfortable in your own skin and take your power back.
Nice. And I know that when we were talking about it, you said this is the ultimate cure for procrastination.
It is. It is the absolute actual cure. You're just going to put your to-do list on its ear. The way you think of your goals and dreams and the goals and dreams you have for your life, you're no longer going to think of them as task lists. You're going to think of them through a different lens. You're going to think about them through the emotional risk it takes, because every action, every thought, every new thought you have has an emotional risk to it. And so you're not doing things in procrastination, perfectionism, et cetera, overwhelmed, anxiety, et cetera, because you're not awake to the emotional risk it takes. And this exercise is going to show you how to take worksheets in there for you. Don't worry, got everything for you. It's a very quick class. It's 3 videos, 15 minutes each. So you'll be able to have worksheets. You're going to have quick videos. I also, in the 3rd video, talk about the wheel of fear, which is the core of my work. So you're going to see a little preview of that. And it's really going to it's really going to give you space to get off your back and quit beating yourself up about not doing things when you think you should.
That's right. And so the link for that is actually blissfulinvestor.com/fearless you. And that's YOU. So blissfulinvestor.com, fearless you. Go get that amazing gift by Rhonda. And thank you so much for that. That is so generous.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yay. Awesome. Okay, good. So Rhonda, are you ready for our 3 rapid fire questions?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay. Got it.
Give us one super tip on getting started investing in real estate.
Number one thing, you must be worth your future. You must decide that you're worth your future, because investing is, a short versus long game. It's a long game, right?
Absolutely.
And so short-term thinking is always, is based in fear. So you've got to decide, and I do mean decide, that you are going to make yourself worthy of long-term investment, because you are worthy of success, and that you are worthy because fear no longer plays with you, because you're going to do stretch, risk, or die, and you are going to know what to do.
Oh my God, I just got tingles. Yay. Okay, give us one strategy on being successful in real estate investing.
Oh gosh. Nothing is going to happen on your timeline. Nothing is going to happen on your timeline. So if you can embrace the uncertainty of success, you will actually be successful. If you are looking for certainty in success, you will never be successful. You might have one hit there, one hit there, now one hit, you might be randomly successful. But really, success is based on your ability to live in uncertainty. So when you can live in uncertainty, you can then have the freedom to take the risks necessary to get where you want to go in the time frame you want to get there, per se, right? But again, it's never, ever, nothing. Success is never going to happen on your timeline. And oh, by the way, I'll tell you one other thing. A bonus tip is that what you think success is now will transform in the future, and it will not be it will, I don't want to say nothing like you think, but trust me, it is going to be better than you can imagine now. What I imagined my life would be 25 years ago when I started, I could never have imagined where I am. So your imagination actually is less than what's possible for you. But you just keep following the breadcrumbs of your imagination and your desires. And remember, uncertainty is the skill that you must embrace in order to be successful.
I just have to say that I feel exactly that same way, because I tell my husband all the time, how did we get here? We never could have planned for this.
Never.
We never could have imagined.
That's
this
right.
life is so much bigger than we could have ever dreamed up. And thank you, we stayed open for that.
Yeah, right. It takes a courage. It takes a courage to be open. People have this timeline, and it's like, no, you don't understand. Timelines are nice. That's nice. That's nice. Great. Good job on that. It's good to have goals, good to have dreams. All those things are nice, but they're just loose structures. If you make them your God, right? If you make them the savior, if you make them the answer, you're missing the point.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. So what would you say is one daily practice, Rhonda, that you use that contributes to your personal success?
Acknowledgements. Acknowledgements is critical in the world of fearless living. And there's so many. We have a daily practice, three things a day, every day that you practice. But acknowledgements is my number one. And so acknowledgements in the world of fearless living is today I acknowledge myself for, and you acknowledge yourself for any stretch, risk, or die that you take during the day. And that stretch, risk, or die might be a thought, a new thought, might be a new thought, right? It might be a new feeling. It might be a new action. But to really embrace, being willing to embrace that changes everything. Acknowledge yourself. Today, I acknowledge myself for, got to write it down, 5 a day, and you will start recognizing your confidence will increase within 3 days. I promise you that.
Yay. Thank you for that. Such beautiful, beautiful, amazing stuff. Thank you, Rhonda.
You're welcome.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining Rhonda and I for this portion of the show. Hasn't it been amazing? Oh my goodness. I'm so looking forward to what we've got coming up in Extra, where we're going to be talking about control versus no control, right? So stay tuned for that. If you're already subscribed for Extra, if you're not subscribed for Extra but would like to be, go to Real Estate Investing for Women Extra.com, and you get the first 7 days for free. So you get Rhonda's Extra. You can get as many as you can listen to in 7 days. Check it out, see if it's for you, and if it is, you can stay with me, and if not, you just got a lot of really good content. So go to Real Estate Investing for Women Extra.com. If you're leaving Rhonda and I right now, thank you so much for joining us for this portion of the show. I look forward to seeing you next time, and until then, remember, goals without action are just dreams. So get out there, take action, and create the life your heart deeply desires. I'll see you soon. Bye. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to download my favorite investing strategy, just go to blissfulinvestor.com. See you next time.